What are adaptations? Animal adaptations are changes to an animal or its environment that helps it to survive. Those changes can be structural, meaning has something to do with the body, or they can be behavioral, which means it's something that the animal does. So, structural adaptations are things about an animal's body that help it survive. Camouflage, mimicry, and body part coverings are examples of these. Camouflage, you are not new to that word. It's when an animal blends in with its surroundings to help it avoid predators or to find prey. So look closely at the green leaf and you'll see that little frog camouflaging himself with the leaf so that that predator, the snake, doesn't see him and eat him. This owl is camouflaged when it stands in front of a tree of a similar color. So when his predator comes by, he doesn't notice the owl sitting there and he's safe. Another form is mimicry. Mimicry is when an animal imitates or copies the look of another animal to avoid being hunted. Sometimes we mimic people. They'll say something and we say exactly what they say, or they'll make some kind of motion or movement and we do the exact same thing. So animals do that sometimes. If you'll look at the two fish, they look very similar. And it might be that one of them's poisonous and one of them is non-poisonous. So, since the non-poisonous fish is mimicking the poisonous fish, the predators will think he's poisonous too and they'll leave him alone. Another structural adaptation is an animal's body part. Every animal has specific things about its body that help it to survive in its environment. An elephant's long trunk and a giraffe's tall neck enable these animals to access their food supply from high up within the trees. Camels survive in the harsh desert conditions because their bodies are adapted to storing up fat so that the animals can go longer amounts of time with no or little food or water. All right, let's talk about the behavioral adaptations. Behavioral adaptations are things an animal does to help it survive. You've already heard the words hibernation and migration, so those are not new words, but we're also going to talk about instinct and learned behaviors. Hibernation is, of course, happens when an animal goes into a period of rest over the colder months and lives off of stored food. So a bear can go into hibernation, and when it does, its body slows down, its heart rate slows down, everything slows down so that its body doesn't require as much energy to stay alive, and therefore it doesn't need as much food. We also know about migration. Migration happens when animals move to a new place because of changing weather or for mating. You probably are familiar, and we talk mostly about birds and whales migrating, but there are actually a lot of other animals that migrate as well. Behavioral adaptations that are instinctive and learned. Instinct is any behavior that an animal is not taught, but rather does automatically, something it's born knowing to do. And let's use ourselves as an example. If you walked into a kitchen and put your hand on a hot stove, you wouldn't have to wait for someone to teach you to yank your hand back. You would do that out of instinct. That was something that when you were born, you would learn that you already had instinctively to get your hand off of something hot. Learned behaviors is any behavior that an animal learns through watching others, usually its parents. And like with us, we have to learn as babies. We learn how to walk. We learn how to eat with a spoon. We learn how, as we get older, how to ride a bicycle without training wheels or hold a pencil. So, learned behaviors, we learn behaviors just like animals do, and we have instinctive behaviors just like animals do. Animals are born with certain behaviors that are their instinct. For example, a beaver knows to build a dam for shelter. A spider knows how to spin a web. A caterpillar knows to build a cocoon. These animals were born knowing these behaviors. Baby animals learn from their parents how to do many things, such as hunt. Bear and lion cubs watch their parents catch prey and learn. Humans also can teach things to animals. If you teach your dog a trick, that's a learned behavior. Animals learn to survive in their environment by adapting to it. I want you to take a look at the 4 pictures below, and I want you to think to yourself, what kind of adaptations does each of these animals have that help it to survive?